I'm David, and here to talk to you about Dave's Picks Volume 8. I'm feeling a bit of wind, so if the sound cuts out because of the wind, I apologize, but I can't do anything about that. I know we usually call these the Seaside chats, and I know it doesn't look like I'm by the sea, but I will say there's some water behind me, right? This is, I don't know what this is. I think it's Corte Madera Creek in Marin County, California. That, of course, is Mount Tam behind me, Mount Tamalpais. You might have heard of it. It's a very cool big mountain in Marin County, California, here in Mill Valley. So here to talk about Dave's Picks Volume 8. A lot to talk about. First we'll get into a bit of the context and what the Dead were up to in November. Oh, in case you didn't know, which you probably do if you got this far watching this video, November 30th, 1980, Grateful Dead, complete concert at the Fox Theater in Atlanta, Georgia. Great show, a lot to talk about. So I'll just get into the context. 1980, huge year for the Grateful Dead, right? Boy, where to start? It was the 15th anniversary, which was officially marked, I guess they were official shows in June of 1980, marked with some shows in Boulder, Colorado. Other big shows that year, of course, were the 3 nights in Alaska just after the Boulder shows. Lots of other big shows. Of course, Go to Heaven was released in the spring. Also in the spring, the Dead appeared on Saturday Night Live for the second and the final time. So kind of a lot going on in terms of Grateful Dead activity, more so than usual. So you got all that going on. Hope this wind isn't cutting out the audio. But if it is, it means you get to hear wind and not me talking, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, right? And so you've got all this going on. Now you've also got a keyboard player, Brent Midland, of course, who's now been in the band by the fall of 1980. He's been in the band 18 months, and really by now he was part of the defining sound of the Grateful Dead. By that I mean, when you think of Grateful Dead music, it really is the sum of those parts, which isn't to take anything away from any of the 6 guys and how talented and how incredibly good they are as musicians, but there's something magical when you get these guys together making music. Phil's bass playing, Bobby's rhythm guitar playing, Jerry's lead playing, the drummers doing their thing. That's what makes the Grateful Dead sound. These guys, Brent was now part of that. Brent, really by mid-1979, by really his second or third tour, he was now completely part of the defining Grateful Dead sound, and you'll really hear it on this release from November 1980. So you've got that going on, and in addition to all that that's going on in 1980, you've got the Grateful Dead at the time of this show coming right off of their multi-night runs, big, huge runs of shows at the Warfield and Radio City Music Hall in September and October of 1980. The big news there, of course, is that the Dead were doing 3 sets a night instead of the normal 2, one of which, of course, was the acoustic set that opened up, Reckoning and things like that. You know all about the acoustic music the Grateful Dead were doing. So, year's been incredibly busy, and what do they do about 3 or 4 weeks after the Radio City shows ended on Halloween of 1980? They go and do 4 nights in the Southeast. They go and do 3 nights in Florida, November 26, 28, and 29, and then they played November 30th in Atlanta to end things off. 4 nights. They flew in with just the crew and flew out, and then they played a little bit more in December. And actually, you know, it really just occurred to me. If you look over there, there's a bridge, right? I don't know if you can see that. But beyond the bridge, there's some buildings, and that is the Mill Valley Rec Center. And about a week after the Grateful Dead played this Atlanta show on November 30th, they played an acoustic set right there at the Mill Valley Rec. Granted, that's the new Mill Valley Rec, so there was a huge renovation. Actually, it was a whole new building. But nonetheless, just an interesting bit of Grateful Dead history that happens in Marin County. So that was about a week after, in early December of 1980, did a little acoustic set. But anyhow, I digress. So here they hit Atlanta. 3 really good shows in Florida. Very, very good. And then they hit the Atlanta show. And beautiful theater. Dead had been playing the Fox Theater now for 3 years. They started playing in 1977 at the Fox. They played there in 78. They played there earlier in 1980. Did a pretty good show, good first set, pretty good second set, but nothing like this one. Then they came back for this one show, and it's exceptional. It's really, to me, one of the best shows of 1980, and that's saying a lot. There was a lot of good Dead shows in 1979, 1980, the beginning of the Brent era, just like 81 had a bunch of good shows. And this one in particular, the Fox on November 30th, it's not only a great show in 1980, it's a great show. It's a show that, you know, I can't tell you the number of times Jeffrey Norman, during mastering of this, which was a long process for him, and I'll get into that in a minute, emailed me, texted me, called me, and said, damn, this is a really good show, man. And that's nice to hear from Jeffrey, because he's usually so into the technical side, and believe me, he's got a great ear for the music too, but when you hear that he's now getting into the music side and really getting off on that, it's nice to hear, and I think you're going to find the same thing, that whether you've heard this show or not, this is a really, really magical show. This is a show that probably should have been released a long time ago, and I say that a lot, but nonetheless, it's now released, so there you go. So I'll get into a little play-by-play, just to give you a little kind of background of the music they played. They opened the show with, one more thing. Bob Wagner. You might know the name Bob Wagner if you're a taper, if you're a collector. You probably know him as one of the better, and there's a lot of good audience tapers out there, but Bob made some fantastic audience tapes, particularly in the early 80s. Some really good ones, and one of the most famous tapes he ever made was the Fox Theater in Atlanta. So Bob Wagner very generously allowed us to use his audience recording, and Jeffrey, for the first time on a Grateful Dead release, created, I guess they're called matrix tapes, where he took the board tape, which is an incredibly clean, beautiful sounding board tape, and Jeffrey synced it up with, which is a lot easier now in the digital world that you can do this. Jeffrey synced it up with the audience recording, just blended in just enough audience to bring the board tape to life. The board tape, like I say, incredibly clean, terrific mix, everything is there perfectly, but what it's missing is the crowd. It's missing the aliveness, the vibrancy of the Grateful Dead playing with an audience, and that's now been added. It's certainly by no means is any of the audience that you'll hear here any distracting or anything like that, but what you do hear is the audience reaction to certain things, the natural hall reverb and things like that. So you've got this incredible sound quality now, unlike anything we've ever done, and believe me, it sounds much better than anything you've ever heard before in terms of the board tape, adding this little bit of audience. So really it's become a whole new experience to hear it like this. Here comes the wind. I hope it doesn't. Well, if it drowns me out, I'd rather hear the wind than me anyway. But so they open up with Feel Like a Stranger. And Feel Like a Stranger, one of my favorite Grateful Dead tunes, certainly one of my favorite Weir Barlow tunes. Kind of like Shakedown Street to open a show. Just got a nice big jam. It really means they mean business, you know, when they open a show with something that you really got to be on when you're going to do a jam like this to open a show. So a great version of Feel Like a Stranger. Instantly you know the sound is on. The sound is incredible from the beginning. So the Stranger ends, big crowd cheer, you'll hear that. And then Loser, and it's a loser where everything comes together, and by that I mean during the guitar solo, it crescendos really where it should, and it just becomes similar to the Albany version at the Knickerbocker that's on the in the spring 1990 box we did. It's a very similar loser to that, and the good losers, when you know of a good loser, and believe me, I know a good loser. When you know a good loser, it's one of those. It's just incredible. Then we've got one of the first cool things to harken back to the Warfield and Radio City stuff. We've got Cassidy, and Cassidy was a song that's been in the Dead's repertoire since 1976, really 74. They did it once, but really from 76 onward, it had been steadily in the repertoire, of course, electrically. But they brought it out as an acoustic song because it was done largely acoustically on the Ace album, and it's beautiful acoustically. But here you get to see the contrast of the acoustic stuff. Think of Reckoning, Cassidy, versus this a month later, the electric, powerful Cassidy. Ramble on Rose. When we did Dave's Picks Volume 7 from 1978, I remember specifically on these little videos I do pointing out the Ramble on Rose and Jerry's vocals during it. And it's the same thing here, where instrumentally, vocally, they nail everything. It's an incredible version of Ramble on Rose, but when they come back after the guitar solo, you'll really hear Jerry belting it out. Just simply incredible, wonderful stuff. Great version of Ramble on Rose. I might put that up as a listening sample, listening party they call it. So yeah, might put that up. We got a lot of other good stuff, so I don't know. Followed up by Little Red Rooster. Gorgeous blues, and you really hear Brent's involvement here. He's really laying down on the organ. He's laying down this incredible, huge, swirling sound. Phil sounds great at this show, by the way. Great big bottom end on the recordings, I guess you'd call them. But also, you get to hear Phil's actual tone, his notes, everything like that. So you've got all this incredible music happening during Little Red Rooster. Brent in particular, I say check it out. Also Jerry's closing solo on Rooster, great. Next big surprise, Birdsong. Birdsong had not been in the Dead's repertoire since 1973. 1980, they bring it back, but acoustically. So they played it acoustically at Radio City in Warfield, and it was really good. Acoustically, I think to hear the Dead jam like that, a Birdsong jam acoustically, very special stuff. But the Fox show in Atlanta, the Dead break out Birdsong electrically, obviously, for the first time in 7 years, so that's pretty cool. And while it's not a version of Birdsong soaring like they'd become later in the 1980s, think of, well, I don't know, think of any of the bird songs that you know from late, let's say 89, where they just get way out there and really, really far out. There was one at the Cap Center in Landover, Maryland on the Ripple Night on 9/3/88 that gets way out there, things like it. It's not quite there yet, but it's a big 10-minute first set jam, so it certainly is an important piece of Grateful Dead music at this show. And the fact that it's the first one, the fact that it's played so well, it reminds me of the 1972 versions where it just moves along with this incredible soothing jazzy pace, and it's good. So we get that, we get a nice cowboy medley, we got me and my uncle Big River. Big River's always a favorite of mine when they do that. Then we get another surprise, I guess you'd call it that. Must Have Been the Roses, another song that had been in the Dead's repertoire since about 74, I think. Yeah, 74 or 73, and yeah, and then they played it 76, 77, 78, 79, and then in 88 they brought it back acoustically for the Radio City Warfield stuff. So you've got this song that they've been playing steadily, just like Cassidy, acoustically, although they did play it electrically a couple times during those runs, which is kind of cool. We got this great version of Must Have Been the Roses, which is a song I absolutely love, and it's a song that if it's not played really well, it can drag a little bit. This one doesn't drag at all. This one is bang on a perfect version of Must Have Been the Roses. Gorgeous playing and singing. Jerry's voice sounds great at this show, by the way. A lot of people give the 80s a bad rap, which I don't get. There's some great stuff in there, but of course in 83 and 84 Jerry's voice starts showing a little bit of signs of wear and tear, but in 80, man, his voice is as clean as it was in 77. It's just incredible vocally. So you hear that, and then the big first set closer. Now this is an 11-song first set, if you think I'm going on for a long time. Lost Sailor, Saint of Circumstance, absolutely love this pairing of songs, followed by Deal. Now the Sailor Saint, as our liner note writer, I'll get into that in a minute, said it's a very leshy Sailor Saint. Feels all over, it's really good. Here comes the wind. There's a cormorant over there. I'll try to pan the camera if he's still over there on a dock. But nonetheless, Deal. Now Deal, if you think of Deal from 1977, 78, it ended with big the vocal chorus being repeated and repeated, and that's how Deal ended. It didn't end with the big jam. You think of Alpine 1989, think of Downhill From Here, that version of Deal that ends with a big blistering guitar solo. Really, all Deals after 1980 ended like that, with the big blistering guitar solo. But in 1980, they were still ending it, they weren't doing the big blistering guitar solo, they were just doing the vocal chorus repeat till frenzy levels, like crazy frenzy levels, but it wasn't the instrumental stuff that they would end up doing later. It was just before this show that they started doing that. It was in September at the Warfield, I think, when they started doing the extended versions of Deal that ended. This version from the Fox in Atlanta is going to blow your mind, especially if you're used to Deal from 77, 78, early 1980, 79, and you're expecting it to end vocally. The solo on this is insane. It's one of my favorite versions of Deal, always has been, and now to get it in this quality, whew, awesome. So there you go, that's the first set. Incredibly long first set, almost 100 minutes I think, and 11 songs, which is long. Usually the Dead's first sets at this time were 65, 70 minutes maybe 9 songs, 8, 9 songs, sometimes 10, but this one was a very long one, and certainly no fluff in it. It's a really hot first set. One of these first sets that every single song is something you look forward to as you're listening to the CD. Great stuff. So that brings us to the set break, and it's an exhausting first set. I'm exhausted talking about it. The second set, one of the finest second sets of 1980, and again that's saying quite a bit. It opens up with one of the best versions of Scarlet Fire you're ever going to hear, and I'm saying that without any hyperbole. I know I said the same thing about Dave's Picks Volume 7. Dick's Picks Volume 18 had a great one, also 1978. This one is really, to me, one of the top 5 versions I've ever heard. In terms of, you think of, and I did the same thing at Normal, Illinois, Dave's Picks Volume 7. You look at the 3 elements of Scarlet Fire. You look at the Scarlet Begonias, you look at the Transition Jam, and you look at Fire on the Mountain. And usually a couple of those elements are really good. Sometimes it's only one. Sometimes it's all 3 are really good. All 3 of these are exceptional, are definitive, really great versions. The Scarlet Begonias, you'll hear it soars. The Transition, of course, is where it's really at. The improv. This is the Dead improvising. The Dead are always called an improvisational band, but they didn't really improvise that much. They played songs and they did some improvising within those songs, but they weren't noodling or anything like that generally, or really creating music right there on the spot. Drums in Space, of course, was created right there on the spot, but for the most part it wasn't. In this case, this Transition Jam is, as all Scarlet Fire Transitions jams are for the most part, is completely unique and one of a kind. Really made up right there on the spot, and it's exceptional. It's good. I told a buddy of mine, Larry, this is for you, because it's epic, because I know you love that word. And I told my buddy Larry in New Jersey just yesterday that if I asked him how long his drive to work is, and he said about 25 minutes. I said, perfect. Put on the Scarlet Fire. When you get Dave's Picks Volume 8, put on the Scarlet Fire, and which is about 20 minutes, 22, 23 minutes, 24 minutes, something like that. I don't know. It's under 25, so if you have 25 minutes to spare, and just listen to it loud, no distractions, and it's going to blow your mind. It's really going to make you whoop and holler. It's really that good. Now, I mentioned something about the liner notes before. If you read about a year ago, The New Yorker, a magazine I've been reading for a long time, did a big profile on the Grateful Dead, and specifically Grateful Dead taping world and how the legacy lives on through the recordings, done by Nick Palmgarten. Great writer, really good guy, and he's a staff writer at The New Yorker, and he has come on board to write the liner notes for this. So if you might remember, he wrote about this show and the Fox in 80. And when we decided to do this show, we immediately thought, well, we always kind of throw around names for liner notes, and it just became incredibly apparent the only person to do this was Nick. And so Nick, thanks for doing it. And for those of you who are about to read these notes, you're in for a treat because they are really good liner notes. It's a cool perspective because this is a guy who's, and I don't know if this is the right way to put it, Nick, but this guy's life was changed by a Grateful Dead show, but not one he attended, by the recording of one. And I think that's a really cool perspective because a lot of lives were changed by people who went to shows. My life was certainly changed when I heard Harper College. I was, it was 15 years after Harper College happened, but when I first heard it in 84, 85, it was a life changer, just like Veneta, Oregon was, but of course I wasn't there. And that's kind of why we got Nick to do it, because it's such a cool perspective. So you've got great liner notes by Nick Palmgarten. So thanks for writing those, Nick, for those who are about to read, and for introducing us to Bob Wagner. For those who are going to read it, they are really good notes. And a lot of other cool stuff from our other Nick, Nick Merriweather at UC Santa Cruz. He really did some great digging through the archive for this one. And we've got gig contracts, we've got the itinerary, which is really cool in terms of flights and hotels. And it's just really cool archival documents. And then some photos by our good friend Jay Blakesberg. So big collaborative effort. You got to know about these things. You've got the whole Rhino team working on the logistics of coordinating everything and the artwork and all that. You got Steve Vance on the artwork and on the package design, and then on the content of the booklet you've got Nick Palmgarten, Nick Merriweather, Jay Blakesberg, just really great stuff. And then of course Jeffrey Norman, so Bob Wagner. So it's a lot of work, these things, and they're a lot of fun to do, which is why I spend so much time talking about them, because I spend so much time working on a specific show that I get to know the nuances of that tape and that recording. After Scarlet Fire, back to our music, tremendous second set. Samson and Delilah, ripping version of Samson and Delilah. Ship of Fools, another song I mentioned a little while ago, another song like Must Have Been the Roses that excellent song, but if it's not played great and Jerry's not really into it and the rest of the band isn't really nailing it, it can drag a little bit. And this one doesn't drag at all. This, in fact, is, I think, one of the best versions of Ship of Fools they ever played. Really, it's a really wonderful version of Ship of Fools. Playing in the band gets into a way out there jam before going into drums and space. Playing in the band, it starts out with a nice mellow jam. Brent's doing some great stuff on the organ, but they take it way out. Like, if you listen to it loud, and I've heard stories of this, no names being said, I've heard of people really blowing out speakers during this playing in the band. Really, so you've been warned. Drums and space, excellent, as you would expect. The space is very, I don't know if introspective is the word for it, but it's a nice, meditative space. Really great stuff. Goes into the wheel, excellent version of the wheel. It's not quite as, I don't want to call the wheel formulaic, but by the time the Dead were really playing it frequently, all the time in, let's say 1987, 88, 89, and it's, I don't know if it's a complicated song to play, but it's certainly a song that's got some distinct parts that you have to nail. And so it became, again, I don't want to call it formulaic, but it became a little bit more, well, I guess formulaic, if you want to call it that, but that's not what I mean. But anyhow, this one is a little looser, and I don't mean that in any way as sloppy. I mean that it's got a real groove to it. It's got a real swing to it. I think I hear this word used by a lot of musicians. Man, we really had swing tonight, or man, that performance really had swing, and this really has swing. The wheel goes into China Doll, which I'll get to that in a second, but the transition, it's not just, again, getting to the later 80s, you'll usually have something like the wheel, if it's going into China Doll, it will just kind of, the wheel will end and peter out and then go right into China Doll. This one goes into this really cool jam. It's almost like they're going to go back into playing in the band. It's got that kind of tempo to it, that kind of vibe happening with it. Last couple minutes, great jam, really good stuff. So we've got the little jam going into China Doll. Great China Doll. China Doll was another one of these songs that had been played acoustically at the Warfield in Radio City. Brent on the harpsichord played beautifully when they did it acoustically. Here they're bringing it back electrically, fits in perfectly, and then they end it with two huge rock and roll tunes, a couple of Chuck Berry numbers, Around and Around and Johnny Be Good, and they rock. They're not, sometimes those songs can kind of be throwaways, not these ones. The Round and Around in particular, beautiful, outstanding. And then the encore is Uncle John's Band, which is rare to have an Uncle John's Band encore. Even more rare is an Uncle John's Band encore that's this good. This is, we'll probably put this up as a listening thing too, because the Uncle John's Band encore is exceptional. Really, they just get into a terrific, they lock into that groove. If you look at the Grateful Dead movie bonus track, talking 1974 version, quite different, but the bonus songs, there's a Uncle John's Band on there, and it's that same thing where they just lock into a groove, and you can kind of see I'm rocking here because Jerry starts rocking during it, like back and forth, and it's that kind of Uncle John's Band, just triumphant, I think is a good word. And that's how they end their tour, a little 4-show tour, 3 nights in Florida, 1 at the Fox in Atlanta. And our show, of course, as Dave's Picks Volume 8, is the Fox Theater show, complete show, of course. This is in keeping with our efforts with the Dave's Picks series to make them all complete shows. This is yet another one. So get it now at dead.net. They do sell out, as you probably know, and they usually sell out pretty quickly. So if you're thinking, oh, I'll pick that up next month or something, I would suggest you don't, because it's going to sell out quickly. And this is a very unique show. It's great, that's not unique, but what Jeffrey's done with the mastering is really unlike anything you've ever heard. Wonderful stuff. So certainly check it out at dead.net. Probably click from somewhere here or something like that. Hope this wind didn't affect what I was saying, but if it did, like I say, who cares really. So I guess I get in there, but I am going to say that the Dave's Picks 2014 subscriptions are going to probably go on sale soon to avoid getting sold out. And this isn't a hard sales pitch. I want people to get music if they want to get music instead of having it sold out when it comes out a year later and you didn't get on it. Just get the subscription because we have good stuff lined up. We've started really putting a lot of work into volume 9, the first one. should have that settled virtually any day now. And then volume 10 or 11, looking at something from that stash of tapes we got returned to us in 2012, that 1969 material that we've talked so much about from one of the Dead's old roadies. We've also had a couple other cool things come our way from 1970, 71. So there's going to be some cool stuff there, and otherwise we're just going to really find good music. We have really no preconceived notions of where we're going with 2014, but we know it'll be good music. So, and there'll be a bonus disc, of course, really good bonus disc. So, yeah, just do it. It's good stuff, and it doesn't cost all that much money, and it'll show up in your mail. But anyhow, Dave's Picks Volume 8, November 30th, 1980 at the Fox in Atlanta. A really, really exceptional show, and it's our first time hitting the Brent era with the Dave's Picks. Certainly not our last, but our first time, so that's exciting. And I just really think you're going to love this show. Whatever era you love, if you like the 60s, 70s, 80s, or 90s, this show, well, first of all, falls right in the middle, but it's a good show. So anyhow, thanks for listening, and if you've got this far, I tip my cap to you because I'm not all that interesting. So yeah, have a good day.